Welcome to 5 and 5 from the One Stop Co-op Shop, where I discuss 5 key elements of a game in about 5 minutes. I'm Michael Kelly, and today we're looking at Deep Space D6 Armada. And a quick disclaimer that I was sent a review copy of this one. Armada is a sequel of sorts to Deep Space D6, which was solo only, but both games use a lot of dice rolling and dice placement to have a space adventure. But how does Armada do, aiming for a more epic experience and adding co-op? Let's find out and get to the list. And I'm starting out with my number 5 at a mix, which is looking at the encounters you have in the game, one of the two main things you interact with at the end of each of your turns. And how these work is at the end of each round, you'll draw one or more based on player count and seed them on these different planets. And when you end your turn there, once you defeat the enemies who are located there, you can have a little mission, have a little encounter. It has a bit of storyline, some fluff to tell you what you're doing, and then you roll some dice based on your crew to try to overcome the challenge. And on the positive side, rolling the dice and trying to succeed at the encounter can be pretty fun. Basically, you can roll as many times as you want to, but each time you have to either lose a die or show one of these medical results. And there can be a little bit of choice there as to which dice you lock in and which ones you choose to re-roll. But on the negative side, those choices are pretty minimal, these become pretty repetitive, and sometimes you'll get stuck in these grindy sessions where you keep on rolling and getting the medical results and not losing any dice, but you aren't actually getting the results you need, so it can kind of get a little dull sometimes. And my number 4 is focused on the other main thing you do at the end of your turn, which is fighting these big fleets of enemies, and this is a pro for me, although one of my points later will kind of undercut that. And it's a pro because it's pretty quick, it's pretty fun, and it has nice streamlined mechanics. One of my favorite things is how the enemies activate. Each enemy will have different die results and different attacks or actions they take with those, but you roll a single die for the entire fleet of enemies. You just kind of go left to right and see what they do and how they combo things together. It's quick, it's fun, and does make things feel varied based on which enemies you're facing. And especially early in the game when your ship is weaker, combat can be pretty desperate, and seeing if you get the right results to fire off your weapons or build your shields up so you don't get destroyed can be very tense. Now, things take a little bit of a nosedive later, but we'll get to that in a future point. I have another pro at number 3, and that's the upgrading of your ship. And this is something I love in other games like Outer Rim or Firefly. It's just a lot of fun for me to have a spaceship that gets better and gets cooler crew. And this one has a whole lot of that. You can shop for parts. Now, it is a random draw, which is both good and bad because you'll end up with more variety each time you play, but you also might go shopping and end up with nothing and kind of feel like you wasted your action. And the crew is the same way, where you draw them randomly and can hire a few of them, but they give you unique dice and really change up the actions you can take and which things your ship will be better at. So I think all of that is fun, although like my number 4, this is going to be undercut in just a moment. And did I mention undercutting? Yeah, here it is. My number 2, a full-on con, is that the balance for this game is totally out of whack. The game can be pretty exciting, even too daunting at the beginning when you're very weak, especially if a bunch of enemies spawn in the same place and kind of build up and you can't defeat them. But even by mid-game, you can become so powerful, so powerful, way too powerful. They did not balance the components well, and the big thing is they didn't have any limitations on how many times you can use components. So like if in combat you get one really good weapon, you can use every single one of your weapon results to blast the heck out of entire huge fleets. By the time I reached the middle in my last game, I had this crazy laser, and I could kill like 10 enemies without breaking a sweat, without taking almost any damage. It was a little bit silly and not really that much fun. And that goes hand in hand with my other full-on con, which is at number 1, which is the grind and repetition. It's not enough that you have this snowballing power and the game becomes kind of trivial and too easy. But on top of that, it takes too long and it gets too repetitive and nothing really changes, especially once you reach that really powerful level. And to get to the final boss, to get to the ending, you're basically relying on luck to draw the right encounters to trigger the endgame. And the designer did post an official variant to make you reach that endgame a little bit quicker, but it's still boring, even with that. So overall, the people who might enjoy Deep Space D6 Armada are the kind of people who also enjoyed Firefly or Outer Rim, especially Firefly because that's another one that goes too long and can feel a little bit grindy. So if you really like that, you might like this as well. And I also think you might want to look into this one if you really like house ruling, because the components and the ideas and the things here are actually really cool, but they just messed up how they're used. So if you want to dig in and give limitations on the ship parts to make them work a little bit better, or change up the way the end game is triggered, I think some people could have a lot of fun with that, and there is some gold to be mined here. But on the other hand, if you want good balance, if you want good variety, if you want a fun experience out of the box, then I think, sadly, you might want to look somewhere else instead of at Deep Space D6 Armada. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you at the next stop.